Have you ever found yourself avoiding confrontation, withdrawing from intimacy, or running from situations that feel emotionally risky? Could this be a flight response stemming from father wounds? Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beloved. I'm Rochelle, and today we are exploring the flight trauma response, which is one of the ways that father wounds can shape how we react to the world. So flight isn't just about physically running away. It can show up as avoidance, emotional withdrawal, or even overworking and overcommitting to escape uncomfortable emotions. Understanding this flight response helps us to identify patterns, reclaim our emotional freedom, and to see how God invites us into healing without fear. So let's look at all of the different ways that flight responses can present themselves. Firstly, avoidance of emotional or relational pain. And here are a few examples. Avoiding conflict or difficult conversations, withdrawing from relationships or emotional intimacy, escaping through hobbies, social media, or substances, overplanning or overcommitting to avoid emotional presence, and daydreaming or mental escape, which is basically dissociating from painful emotions or situations. Another way in which it can present is over-functioning and perfectionism, where you may work relentlessly to avoid criticism. You may take on too much responsibility in work or relationships in order to distract from pain or trying to earn love, or you may be constantly busy in order to avoid stillness or self-reflection. Then there is hypervigilance and anxiety, where you may be over-analyzing words or behavior because you're scanning for danger in order to avoid criticism or rejection. You might be catastrophizing, where you expect the worst in order to stay safe. Or you may be having difficulty making decisions under pressure out of a fear of making a wrong move that could trigger rejection or conflict. And last but not least, fear of exposure or insecurity. So avoiding success, where you keep yourself small so that you do not attract attention, or you are afraid of shining brighter than your father figure and perhaps other people later on in life, because you do not want to provoke resentment. And also fear of failure or vulnerability. So what causes this flight response? This is something that's often a protective mechanism developed in childhood, and at that time it kept us safe when the father figure was emotionally unavailable or unpredictable or critical. And when a child feels unsafe being seen or fears punishment or rejection, keeping busy or perfect then feels like a shield against rejection or conflict. Here are a few things that could lead to the different responses that we just discussed. So if there was a lot of inconsistency or absence, then children learn to avoid seeking closeness because this then leads to disappointment. Or if there was a lot of fear of anger or criticism, then children interpret this as, if I express my needs, I'm going to be punished. Therefore, I avoid this in order to survive. If there was a lot of emotional invalidation, when feelings are being ignored or dismissed, then children learn to disconnect from these feelings. And if there was overwhelm from unmet needs, when the gap between expectation and reality is just too wide, then what is learned is that fleeing feels safer than confronting those needs. Essentially, flight develops as a coping strategy to protect the heart, but as adults, it can then prevent healthy connection and personal growth. So what is the biblical perspective on flight? So the Bible encourages us to face challenges with courage, while trusting God to be our refuge and guide. So Psalm chapter 34 verse 18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." So God is present even when we want to run. He meets us in our fear. Joshua chapter 1 verse 9 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Courage does not mean the absence of fear. It means moving forward even when fear is real. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9 says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." So God's grace allows us to step out of avoidance and into healing at our own pace. How can we then begin to heal from this flight response? So firstly, there needs to be an awareness. We need to be able to notice when we're running or avoiding, and sometimes journaling helps us to identify these triggers. We need to explore the root cause, so we need to reflect on the father wound behind this avoidance. What is it that I am protecting? We need to have small acts of courage, so beginning with lower situations to practice staying present emotionally. We need community and accountability, so it's good to have relationships that encourage vulnerability safely. And prayer and God's presence, so inviting God to guide our steps instead of running, and trusting Him to hold our heart. So here are some reflection or journaling prompts. Where in my life am I avoiding truth, conflict, or intimacy? How does this connect to experiences with my father or father figures? What small step can I take today to face what I usually flee from? And how can I rely on God to strengthen me in moments of fear? And today's affirmation is, I am safe to face what I fear. I'm learning to stay present, to trust in God, and to engage with life from a place of wholeness. And we will close on this verse from Psalm chapter 56 verse 3, which says, "When I am afraid, I put my trust in you." Even when the flight response tempts us to run, we can anchor ourselves in God's presence. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this episode was helpful. And if you feel like it would be beneficial to someone else, please feel free to share and encourage them. Also, for more to see what's coming up in the series or to review what has gone before, feel free to subscribe on Substack, where you can see the written summaries of each episode. And the episodes are also available on YouTube and on all podcasting platforms. So remember, recognizing that your flight response isn't a flaw, it's an invitation to healing, and God is faithful to guide our steps even when it feels uncomfortable. So until next time, stay rooted in truth, wrapped in grace, and never forget you are beloved.